Am I in the screen?
You're perfect.
I'm going to go on the other side, so I can go over there. Oh, great. Yeah, I'm going to go over here.
Yeah. Now he's off. But... Okay, so now, yeah, you can go.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. So this is our February parent plug-in. For those that maybe haven't been before, or you were here earlier and then it's been a while, we actually surveyed parents to get some ideas about the things that you wanted to talk about when we had these sessions. And one of the recommendations was, please talk about technology and how technology is used. For those of you that have younger students, this might be your first time someone giving them a school-issued device. For those of you that have kids that are in middle grades, you might want to know about, well, how do we monitor social media and all the other things. So we are here to talk more about that. Ms. Beck's going to do most of the talking, but I do want to kind of get us keyed up for that. So, Ms. Solomon, thanks. Remember that the parent plugins are done with this idea to rebuild trust with our families and to get you guys to be more engaged. I think all of us know we went through a time where parents were just not on campus. And so in order to overtly try to correct that, we've done parent plugins, we've done some other social mixers, we're going to continue to do things like that. But we really want to drive home the point that we know that parents are incredibly valuable, right? It's very important for us to be able to function as a school, to have feedback from you, to have your input, and to make decisions that take that input into account. So thank you for your time today, and we're going to keep working on this. So we've had a lot of successes lately. We had students go they participated in Spelling Bee on campus, then they went to the Spelling Bee for Chatham County. Our person got out in the fourth round, but it was a lot of fun. We had our seventh graders go to Atlanta to the Future Cities competition. And if you don't know about Future Cities, it's a problem-solving design challenge that our students do for most of a semester. It carried from second quarter into third quarter when we got back. And so those students took the cities that they designed and the solutions that they designed about energy and consumption and went to Atlanta to present. And we had two really big winners. We had the overall best girls team, and we had the most innovative clean energy solution. And so those were selected by the people there in Atlanta that were helping judge. The students had a really great time. We also participated in the Spanish Chatham Student Success Expo. They have STEAM competitions there for engineering and design challenges, and so we swept the robotics challenge, which was really amazing. Students worked on that with Mr. McDonald, who teaches computer science and programming and robotics, and so he took a group of students and they did really well. And then we won second place in the design challenge for straw towers. Students have to construct a tower that has to hold a certain amount of weight. Second place to an engineering school here in town that I don't talk about. It's a terrible school. Science and engineering fair, we got first and third place in animal sciences. And what's not on here is that all of our students that participate in the science fair are actually advancing to regionals, which is pretty great. Data science, research, we have students engage in that. They tend to do really well. They can explain their process. Part of scientific method is having students be able to explain their hypothesis and to either support that claim or refute the claim, and so they can really talk well. Our kids get research experience starting in kindergarten, and so by the time they go to compete, they're pretty good at it. Did I forget something? No? Okay. And then, of course, Q3 started. So for our elementary school students, those are problem-based learning units that started in January. So Stars in the Sky for K, Transportation, Art in the Sky for second grade, Coastal Erosion, Safe Shelter, and then reducing harmful bacteria in the local waterways. We just heard from Ms. Smith that a community partner for them was on campus yesterday working with the students on doing some of that data collection about what happens in a coastal area when something invasive is introduced into the water system, right? So it's really good stuff. School-wide successes. We received a donation to create a scholarship fund for our families who take out-of-town field trips. Why? Well, parents are giving us feedback about, gosh, you guys go on a lot of field trips. Yes, we do. For those of you that maybe don't know, when we negotiated our contract with Kelly Tours to provide bus service, so as a charter school on an island, we felt like having a bus was pretty important. Part of that contract negotiation said that we would partner with Kelly to do at least one big overnight trip or a big trip for students during the year at each grade level. And I said, well, okay, then I want to be able to have a day trip thrown in for free, not free, we're paying for it, for free each month for each grade. So if you know anything about schools that operate in the school system, I mean, when I was a principal of a school in the system, I would pay about $20,000 a year just to be able to send kids on field trips on a school bus. And they were pretty sporadic. Like, you know, you couldn't really do that. And we would also have to pass that cost on to parents at $3 or $4 or $5 a student, plus whatever it costs to actually do the field trip. So we don't do that. We don't pass along that cost to parents. Costs for field trips have increased, but that's not because of the transportation costs. It's because of the places we're going charge more than they did, or they charge at all now versus when they used to be free. So we got feedback from some families that said, wow, like we're really happy about these opportunities, but you know, you're telling me that this field trip is going to be $100 or $200, and I don't know if you looked at the economy. I have. And it really impacts our household in a pretty adverse way. And so we started the Maritime Fund this year, and it's been incredible, the donations that we have received. But we happened to get a donation at the same time that some people were telling us, hey, this is cumbersome for our family to add this expense. And so this community partner said, well, I'm happy to let the donation that I gave be used for field trips. Thanks. But we also want to try to be equitable with that. So what we did is we started a scholarship fund, and now anytime there's an out-of-county field trip, there will be a form, and families can say, hey, we need some help with this. Now, we're not fully funding anyone. There's no 100% scholarship. But there is at least an opportunity for a parent to say, you know, of this $100, I could really use 50 or 75, and we'll find the rest. And we already instituted that process with our trip to Atlanta, and we had a few families that said, yeah, we can use some help. And it worked out really well. So we're really happy about starting the scholarship fund, and I hope that parents see that we're trying to be mindful of what these costs can be. We also take academic field trips, so it's important for kids to participate, and I don't want money to be the barrier for kids not to be able to do something. Did I leave anything out?
No.
Okay. For the first time since the school's been open, we had 100% of our families say yes, they're coming back. Yes, they said that even after the calendar was published. So we are very, very grateful, and really that's very humbling to have all of our families say, we're coming back. That does mean that we're now accepting, I think we're close to 200 applications now for probably 50 seats. Because when everybody's coming back, there's no room, right? We only add room in kindergarten, a little bit in first, a little bit in second. And then 3 through 8 is locked. So that's fantastic, but that is kind of the reality of having a school that you can choose and having everybody say that they're going to come back. Basketball season's in full swing. It's almost actually at the end of the swing. We have one more game, I know, this evening for boys. Boys won last night at a scrimmage against St. Andrews. It was their first win of the season. So we're in a building year for that program, but it's gone really well, both boys and girls. Very competitive, but also just really doing a great job with the camaraderie and the other things that happen when you have team sports. Soccer has started. Soccer practice has started. We haven't had our first match yet. I believe that's next week, boys and girls. And then baseball has also started just practices. So you're allowed a little bit of a window to practice prior to season and game starting. Maritime Fund, I talked about earlier, we're a little over $102,000 with just one real direct ask that happened prior to the holidays. And then I think we're looking at some of our board members that are also going to be participating and reaching out to some local businesses. We talk a lot about money because of the impact that it has on the education of kids, right? And how we can take care of teachers and how we can manage our operations. But I've also said in meetings that I don't want to nickel and dime our parents to death. Like, we already asked people to pay for field trips. We already know that there's a contribution that's been made by families to support us in some ways. What I'm really looking for is for us to kind of pivot now and go into the community and say, hey, industry partner, or hey, community supporter, this is what we do. If you didn't know, this is how you can support us. It's not always about a check, but wow, it's always really nice when we can offset expenses, right? So that's kind of where we are with Maritime Fund. Growth Strategy Grant. So we've talked in this forum as well as in some other places, especially our board meetings, about the opportunity to replicate or to grow. And we participated in some work with people from the Atlanta area and had just a really good meeting with them, and actually continue to have meetings with them because they're very interested in how we're doing, what our model is, how do we accomplish the things that we do. And so they were so excited about that they said, well, here's an additional grant for you to continue this work with us and work on this partnership. Look at how you're structured, how your organization is structured, and then also what it might look like if this school were somewhere else. Not moving this one, but considering this the flagship school, if there were another school that was modeled after this and how they could partner with us. So they gave us an extra $50,000 to kind of work on that. And teacher incentive plan. So we have an incredible attrition rate. And I say this knowing that the district just announced theirs yesterday, but the district is, they're retaining about 80%, I think 80.2, maybe 81.2 of their teachers last year. We're at 93%. But, you know, one of the things that I try to talk about a lot is I want this to be a teacher's dream job. And so one of the ways that we've been able to structure our days is everyone has common planning for almost 2 hours every day. They get a chance to collaborate with their colleagues. They get a chance to pursue things that might matter to them professionally. We have an EdCamp model where they can come back and share with their colleagues the things that they learned, the things that they're excited about or passionate about. One of the other things that we decided that was necessary is we need to pay teachers more, which I talk about all the time. But trying to figure out how to structure that in following the salary schedule that we do with Savannah Chatham, because they're our payroll provider, is a little challenging. So what we did is we developed an incentive or a bonus structure, and we talked to the colleagues here about the things that we expect them to do at TIMA that maybe they're not expected to do somewhere else, right? They have to write their own problem-based learning units, the curriculum that they use for maritime, I mean, all of those things, these extra field trips, like all of which is a supervision thing for teachers. So, but all of these things that we ask them to do, they're maybe a little above and beyond what they would do if they were in another school. And so we took all of those things that we know that we're going to require them to do anyway, and we put that into an incentive plan that's structured. We ask, as an Apple Distinguished School, we ask our teachers to be Apple Certified teachers, which does mean that they have to go in and work on apps and do some projects and things that keep them connected to Apple, but also means that it comes back in the classroom. So by taking all of those things, we developed that plan and then placed a value to that, and we said there'll be 3 times during the year that we're going to give you a disbursement. And they actually said that's what we want. And we said once, twice, or 3 times. They said 3 times. So we did our first disbursement right before the holiday break. Everyone that participated in the first third of the plan did what they were supposed to do. No surprise. And then we're set for our next disbursement to happen in March. And so, and then one at the end of the year. And that's going really well. We're getting a lot of really good feedback from our colleagues too about the things that they're happy that they have a voice, they're happy that they're valued, they have ideas about how things could be different. That's great. But it's just good to be in a place where they can give us their input and we can really do something with it. That is an incredible flexibility that the board allows me to work with these amazing colleagues. So, when we did Parent Plug-in in January, one of the things that we talked about with everyone was MAP scores and how students are progressing, their growth more than necessarily their achievement. But we definitely have students that are not achieving where we need them to. And I think if you've been around at all for the balanced calendar discussions over the last 2 years, then one of the things that I know you've probably heard is that by having multi-week intersessions, or having intersessions at times that maybe the district doesn't have breaks, allows us opportunities to remediate learning. Traditionally, schools have always done summer school, right? That's not a really good model for TIMA, to push all of our remediation to the summertime on the island. But also, if you know you have kids that are struggling, why you wait 9 months to help them, I don't understand. And not that we do, but you get my point. So having intersessions with this time built in was done by design, and we worked on the balanced calendar. So our very first opportunity to do that is March. So we have really good math data, and we were able to look at students that we felt could benefit the most from this. We've already sent invitations to those families. If you've got one and you want to talk about it, I'm happy to stay after and you can talk. If you didn't get one, then that means your child is doing what they need to be doing, making progress that they need to, or achieving where they need to, and they probably would not benefit from the extra time. So you guys go have fun. But the idea is that for those 4 days in March, they're going to come here. Probably no more than 15 kids per grade level will be on site, and classroom teachers will be here to provide remediation for them. Now they're getting supplemental pay for that, but it is absolutely something that we know is necessary based on the data that we have. And this is already in the budget. So instead of using that supplemental instruction budget at the end of the year, we're just using it at different times during the year. I'm gonna hush. Miss Alicia Beck.
So I'm going to talk to you about a lot of different perspectives on technology today. But the first one is our vision for technology at TIMA, and it's very intentional. We talk a lot about what we want students to be able to do with technology. And one of the big components there is creation over consumption. I know people say screen time, or the word screen time, and people feel conflicted about that. You go to your pediatrician, they talk to you about your kids wearing a seatbelt, and then they talk to you about screen time. And I think we need to start talking about it a little more specifically, though, because there's different kinds of screen time. So what we look for with students using technology is students actually creating and collaborating with their peers, using the technology as a tool to be able to show their understanding of their learning. One of the things that I have grown to add to this vision is our being good consumers. There's a lot of information out there, and teaching our students to be able to decipher that, to be able to look at facts, to be able to read and understand data is very, very important. We talk about that a lot with our There's some really fun ones. You have two coding apps on the bottom, Swift Playgrounds and Tinker. Tinker's a little bit for younger kids, and then Swift Playgrounds for older students. They're both teach students how to program and use different programming languages. And then Tinkercad, for any of our students that go through maritime engineering with Mr. Apollo, they use that to actually design 3D models and send those to 3D printers. One of my favorites is the Merlin app. That's actually a bird sound identification app that you might, on your way out, see students holding their iPads up in the air. It's because it identifies bird sounds and helps them identify what birds are out there. And they're actually participating in a citizen science project right now where they're doing the great backyard bird sound. So they're actually counting that. And that data gets reported to actual scientists who use that. And then this is stop motion app. So we have our students including filmmaking. They're also doing some stop motion. We've had children here at TIMA for the last couple of years. They've come home and showed you one of their stop motions because they have an app. They're really neat. So with technology comes responsibility. And we have built in digital etiquette through LYP. We have a matrix that looks at, okay, what does it look like? What do our LYP tenants look like in different areas? What does it look like when we're having lunch? What does it look like in the classroom? Well, part of that matrix is also what does it look like when we're online? And this is something that I think we all should be mindful of, but we try to talk to our students about that in class and embed that in the things that they do. So, things like using kind words when posting on a digital platform, asking permission before you post a picture of one of your peers. We ask people to be patient. Everyone has different learning levels when it comes to technology. Sometimes it's easier for others to learn a certain tool or understand a certain tool. So being patient with your peers. Thanking people. We have our students, even in kindergarten, communicating with each other on these different platforms. Even in kindergarten and Seesaw, students can respond to each other's work in their portfolios. Making sure that if someone says something nice, turn around and say thank you. That was a nice comment. We can use the things that we would want to see our students do in person, but also on a digital platform. And the last is contributing, and all of these platforms are meant for sharing work and collaborating, so making sure that we use those in a positive way, contribute. And something we talk about with all of our students is that everything that we do on the internet is there forever. We don't delete anything. Nothing actually is deleted on the internet. So that's a lesson that we embed in a lot of the work we do. So a little bit about our model, a big overview, is that we are one-to-one iPad, which we know. We have an Apple TV in every classroom. That is not an actual TV. It's a box about this big, and it sits plugged into projectors, and it just allows teachers and students to quickly screen share or screen cast what's on their screen. It's great if, say, students are working on projects, maybe you're in film, they're working on a video. Okay, at the end of the day, you want to see where everyone is, what you've done, what you've worked on today. Students can easily just swipe up on the right and screencast their video and share it with the class. All the students know how to do that, and it's just a great way to collaborate and share. We did a refresh this past year. Any device that was older than 3 years we replaced, which is really nice to keep those iPads updated so they can use all the current apps. We have a 24-hour model with our 3rd through 8th grade iPads, which means they go home. And if we originally had that for the whole school, we kind of stepped back from that. It served us well through COVID. We were glad that we already had that in place. But we also had a lot of feedback from families saying they didn't think it was developmentally appropriate. And, for a lot of reasons, for just an opportunity for us to build in that digital etiquette before we start sending them home. I think it was really important to step back from that and say, okay, we're going to keep them at school for the first 3 years. And unless there is, of course, a project that students are specifically working on where the iPad will be useful, so we can attention. For example, in 2nd grade, their PBL is the 7 Minute Stars. They're talking about the science of phenomena through impressions of art. But one of the projects, or one of the units of projects, the students actually document with photographs the basics of realism at home. So it's going home for that purpose, so we intentionally need to do that. 90, Robert mentioned that our teachers are Apple Teacher Certified. 94% of our staff is Apple Teacher Certified. It does take time, so if we have new staff that's onboarded, it does take a little time to get that completed. addition to the Apple Teacher Certification and attached to our teacher incentive plan, it's an Apple Teacher Portfolio, and there's digital badges that they earn through Apple, where teachers actually work on creating artifacts, innovative uses of technology, submitting those to Apple, and then sharing them with their team. And it's for each different levels of a lesson. So we started with activators and how to use technology to open a lesson, and teachers came up with portfolio items for that, and now we're moving on to the core. Jump in.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Did you guys know any of that was happening?
Not the Apple learning, like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I always want to know if you could make me a distinguished Apple.
You can be an Apple certified teacher. Part of being an Apple certified teacher was that was also why we became an Apple distinguished school. We were recognized as one of about 600 schools globally for innovative use of technology.
I did want to say too, I've got money on my mind, right? So the refresh this year was purposeful for a lot of reasons. Beck didn't share with you, but she did the lion's share of the work for our buyback. So Apple really does do planned obsolescence, where you have to go out and buy more Apple technology. Do you guys not know this? What iPhone version are you on? Right. So Apple does this. It's okay because it's a good product and it really does for us what we need it to for kids. But the value after that third year drops precipitously. So it was really important for us to gather up all the devices that we could sell back at a pretty good, not obviously close to the value that we paid for it initially, but Ms. Beck gathered up all of that and then sent that off with a third-party vendor. And so we got this in the budget for this refresh was about $115,000. I'm most curious about what it took to refresh this year. But we got a $40,000 grant from the city of TIMA. They're very big in supporting us on technology. And then Ms. Beck's work yielded about $25,000 from this third-party vendor for everything that we sold back. So we budgeted for it, but then we were able to offset that with grants and with this buyback. So we are, as I said earlier, always talking about money, but that was a way that we could do this really successfully. And just wanted to say that.
Yeah, great. I was happy to refresh it. I've been in schools where we try to keep technology kind of going for 5 and 6 years. It's very frustrating for everyone. It's frustrating for students, it's frustrating for teachers. I do think it's very important to stay current with what being developed. Because Apple does a lot of really innovative, interesting things with technology specific for education. So I mentioned 94% were Apple certified. We have 1 Apple learning coach, that's me. And then we were recognized as an Apple distinguished school. It's very exciting. We got a lot of professional development through that as well for both our executive team and leaders, but also for our staff. So there's a lot of opportunities that built in with being an Apple distinguished school. These are 2 logos you might be familiar with. We have 2 learning management platforms that we utilize in our schools. For K through 2, we use Seesaw, and for our 3rd through 8th grade, we use Google Classroom. We chose to use Seesaw for our learning platform because it was just a little more developmentally appropriate for our K through 2 students. Also, we felt like the parent-facing aspect of Seesaw was really robust and something that parents would want to be able to utilize. It's a little different than Google Classroom in that it's a portfolio, so it's a student-driven portfolio. Teachers are able to create lessons in there, post assignments, but they also can provide text and audio feedback. That's great for our little ones when we're still building literacy. And then students are able to explain their thinking through a lot of different avenues. Not only can they, of course, type, they can draw pictures. So a lot of times you'll see students drawing or illustrating math problems in the first grade on Seesaw. They can create audio recordings. They can use text. They can create videos. But the part that I really like is the portfolio part is student peer-based.
hold on. What are you guys talking about? Well, because the device isn't coming home, right? Oh.
Oh yeah, okay. So if you don't have access to that, you need to reach. And I was going to mention that you need to reach out to your child's teacher, and they can provide an access code for you. That code changes pretty frequently, so if they give you a code, it's going to be hard to need a new one. But yeah.
Is something that we bring up to our teacher and say, hey, we'd like to interact more? Is that something y'all are doing in the classroom? Like maybe there's.
Do you already have access to it?
I already logged in.
Yeah, so if you want to interact more, I would reach out to your teacher. Reach out to me. Yeah, we can look at that. But yeah, there's a lot of features on there where you really do get to look at your students' work and feedback, even though the device isn't coming home.
You can record a message for your child,
So cute.
like my mom did for me. No.
You got your your link.
Right, that's true.
Google Classroom, and the huge push for using CISO was that parent side. And I get a report every week about our parent interaction with that. It's pretty high. We actually have quite a few parents that do interact on that platform with students. But if you want any more information, talk to your child's teacher. That's a great opportunity. If you're in a conflict, just mention, hey, I'd like to kind of interact more here, or reach out to me, sit down with you. Google Classroom, it's great for older students. It's definitely the kind of platform that students are going to start interacting with more as they move from elementary to middle to high school. It allows teachers to create and manage classes, assignments, grades, provide written feedback, nice paper lists. Students are able to track work, submit assignments. It connects to other interfaces like calendar, so students can kind of start some organizational skills that are much needed as we move into our older grades. And families, you can sign up. It's an invite from the teachers. If you haven't received an invite and you have a child using Google Classroom, reach out to your child's teacher. And you'll receive an email. It receives email summaries about your student's activity in Google Classroom, missing and upcoming assignments, and then class activity. So both are great tools, and both have different purposes and different audiences. So any questions? Okay.
So I know this has been kind of thrown out there in the past, so I'm gonna be like, bringing something back up again that maybe like, oh, where they're at. Is there, in the future, are we looking at a platform that provides all of this in one area? Like the grades, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it seems, only because there's, I know we've talked about this before, and that's why I'm bringing it up again. I was just curious if there's like the wall.
Laura, do you want to?
So something
Yeah.
that like works with Power School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like Power School. That's the thing. I don't like Power School. No, I never can get on. I only have grades for 2 of my kids.
Oh, do you?
I don't have
Yeah.
4, but I mean, I'm assuming they're doing really well. Based on these things right here.
We are looking at those. And
Trust us.
Yeah, part of this growth strategy grant, actually, we can use some of that money to purpose it towards that. But we do have issues in integration, right? So as a district school, we use Power School, and that's how we get all of our student information. So nutrition, all these other non-academic pieces that we manage information about students. So the question and the investigation is really about what can we implement that doesn't create a dual system model. So you're now looking at Google Classroom, LMS, and Power School, and creating extra work for teachers to have to input it in 3 places.
Sure,
so that's kind of where we are in that, is looking at what would the most effective strategy to be to integrate into what we already use and what students and teachers are familiar with without creating extra work and confusion.
Right, yeah. I would definitely want to be more, but yeah, it seems like it would be so much more convenient for everyone if there was just one place that you could go and you would see everything. So.
Well, the district, Savannah Chatham County also is shopping. Savannah Chatham County doesn't use either of these platforms. 2 years ago, they shifted to something called Authority, and we chose not to do that shift with them. We looked at the platform and decided it wasn't for us. That was a good choice because it's no longer even going to be supported here in this country. So they're having to shift again. Good choice. But I don't
Thanks.
know. I don't know what they're going to adopt. They are looking at adopting a new platform, and I'm hoping it would be great if they decide to adopt a platform that is compatible, that is one streamlined platform that's compatible with our school.
So just as a reminder, Ms. Beck is our Director of Curriculum Instruction, and so she does a lot of things related to technology, but how do we use technology to leverage what kids need to learn, and how can kids express what they learn through technology, right? It's great. Laura Solomon is our Director of Strategy and Innovation, and she's the sacrificial lamb that I said, hey, email these companies and see if they're interested in selling us their product. So I think she's on like email number 470 from people that are like, hey, are you ready to buy? Are you ready to stop? Like, we know we're adults and we're gonna make a decision, but we just reached out for information. So we are trying to solicit some information, but if you've ever tried to solicit information from salespeople, it's challenging because we just need the information and then, right. So Laura's doing a great job.
What's fascinating about that is we've had companies come back and say, no, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's, yeah.
not going to work. And so technology moves only at a certain pace, so we're trying to find the right tool, but it might not be there yet, but I think eventually
You know, but to the point of this presentation, it is with intentionality. I think, you know, whenever you rush into a holistic software solution like that, you can end up with a lot of unintended consequences. And so we're trying to be really deliberate that it's a tool that will be effective for families and the faculty.
all of our students, and you know, I think I've said a lot in this. I've used the term developmental appropriateness, but it's Google Classroom is developmentally appropriate for a 5-year-old. So finding a tool that's appropriate for a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old is very challenging.
There's also another group that we're always thinking about too, and that's our teachers. So some places the teachers learn something, they learn it really quickly, they have to implement it really fast, and then 2 years later it changes, right? So you've invested all of this time and all these resources in making someone do something that now has no value, which can be really frustrating for a professional, right? So we're gathering this information so we can make a decision, because what we decide on is something that we're going to commit to for a pretty long amount of time, right? Because once we educate all of our teachers on the best way to implement that and use that every day, then who else do we need to teach? We need to teach the kids, right? And we have to teach our families so that this tool that we adopt is useful to everyone. So that is something that we've actually been exploring even since last year, and we're still working on it, but we're making progress.
Thank you.
Sure. Good question.
Any others on this one?
Another question I can ask is about iPad safety. Now, we do have filters on the internet for students. It filters website content. There is an app store on your child's iPad. Explicit iTunes music, podcasts, news content. And that can sometimes be inappropriate, so that is blocked. In-app purchases are blocked. Messaging and FaceTime are blocked. This is not perfect. Things get through these filters. iPad time is not alone. Always monitoring those students. So this is really important that we do have these measures in place. But no, it's not easy to measure. But that's the best way to monitor what any child is doing by questions about this.
If they were to get on YouTube and looking at videos and stuff, is there, this is where I'm like, I don't know, like I can block, you can go to a website, but only I can block certain like material that can come up on it.
YouTube is filtered.
Okay, so you put it like for YouTube, there's filters on it, so when the kids want to search for videos and that kind of stuff, they're not going to have access to everything, correct?
YouTube is filtered.
Sure.
However, it's not perfect. New
Sure.
content is being created all the time. People find loopholes. Other people fix those loopholes,
But not before they share it with each other.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what all my kids stop asking Siri questions because Siri, I mean, like you might ask about a bunny, but I don't know what bunny they're going to bring up, you know? So I'm like, stop asking Siri questions and just ask. Yeah, so I was just curious on, you know, I mean, I'm obviously aware of it, I was just curious as to like how
And
extreme or.
on a parenting note, 2 apps that do not participate in Apple's native filtering program are TikTok and Snapchat. So like content in that does not get filtered from an Apple filtering mechanism, but YouTube does. Those are the only 2 that actively don't participate in. Right.
They're not-
Yeah,
can't
they wouldn't be on a
download
school
apps,
iPad
they can't
anyway.
download TikTok, they can't download any of those things. Now, to be completely transparent, that does not mean students are not going to figure out a way to communicate on these
For sure,
devices.
yeah.
They're really
smart.
airdrop each other.
Hence why everyone's here.
Yeah, I mean, they're one of the things that I thought was brilliant, but students realize that even in some of those Google apps, you know, you can comment and share and actually start and create chats in photos. Who knew? So students are always going to find a way to get around some of these filters. It's up to us as the educators, as parents, to make sure that we equip them with the tools that they need to be able to navigate the internet. The wild, wild west, I call it, because it is not, it's not regulated. Did you want to add to that? I feel like you do.
Well, I don't know what I can. I mean, first of all, we really do lean into like the parent is a child's first teacher, period, right? And so we accept the responsibility of educating them while they're here. We love what we get to do with them, but nothing replaces supervision of your child. And I can't tell you how many times I have parents that reach out and they're like, I'm frustrated because my kid was on their device at home and they were looking at something, nothing salacious, but something that the parent didn't want them to. And I was like, well, what were they doing? They're like, well, they were in their room. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's probably.
I absolutely 100% agree with you. Yeah,
Like,
it's not like that.
probably not the best call, right? Like, I don't, do you give them your phone to go in your room? Like, I can't say it enough. Like, we do everything we can to keep them safe, but nothing replaces the parenting, right? And we want to support that. So, sure. Oh, yay.
So yeah, absolutely. Screen time.
I meant to do that.
Screen time should not be wasting time. Our teachers have ways to monitor all of the screen platforms, but at home, it is really important when your child's on device that you're there with them. Ask them what they're watching, ask them what they're doing, what's the purpose of it. If they're sitting there consuming YouTube videos, maybe just take it away. The iPad is an educational tool. A couple suggestions: make sure you cut off screen time about an hour before bedtime. There's a lot of research out there that suggests that the blue light before bed can impact sleep, and that's something that I need to listen to more often. And then don't charge your child's iPad in their bedroom. That's going to hear a lot. It's like even from students, well, we're working from home. I do is up on my iPad. Well, you should probably, I think a good practice would be to find a place in your house. Kitchen is great, where you can take all the devices at night, plug them in, to make sure they're away from it. Even that, like if there's notifications on the device, that doesn't come up in the middle of the night, things like that. So, this is your common sense things that I'm sure all of us are familiar. But I think that's really important. The other thing is, our kids look at us as we use technology, and I do think it is really important that we model healthy habits with our devices. I get it.
Were you saying something?
I, have to remind myself of that even. But making sure that the only thing your child doesn't see is you on your phone all the time, I think is important. Let them read a book in front of them. Put the device down and have conversations. If they're in the car, ask them to put the iPad down and have them talk about what they did at school that day. Really just model those opportunities that you can connect together and not have technology kind of interfering in our relationships. And really what we will know is appropriate and healthy for us. And then,
Oh, wow, that was nice.
yeah, if you have any questions about those things.
One of the things that I hope is a really big takeaway is that we really do think about these things. I don't know how many times when we were first adopting a one-to-one iPad that I would have someone reach out and they're like, you don't want kids on devices all day. No, that's gross. Like, that's not what we want at all. But, I was 9 years old when my dad got me a Commodore 64, right? And he said, computers are going to be a big thing. And I was like, okay, sounds great. I want to make sure that kids have access to the tools that they're going to be able to use to be successful. But what we do with them is very much much done with purpose, and we try to make sure that that's communicated. But oftentimes what parents see is what their child brings home on a device, and so it's hard to get that message through sometimes. So if you have questions or concerns or thoughts or ideas about how we can continue to get this message out there, and also keep kids safe and keep parents informed, and we're always trying to think of ways. And if you find something or you're curious about something, please let us know. Power School is kind of gross, but it is where you get official grade information. You can't rely on Seesaw or Google Classroom to give you accurate, up-to-the-minute performance information about how your child is doing. That is what Power School is for, as well as attendance, right? So if you get notification about attendance concerns, or if you aren't really sure where your child is with their classroom performance, Power School is where that information is. It's where we house it. And so there is a way to access that. If you don't know that, you can reach out. Actually, you're supposed to reach out to the information specialist. For us, that's our business office manager, Ms. Fleming. She can help you get access to the parent-facing side of Power School, so you can have that information. What did I forget?
No, I was trying to remember the percentage of students that access Power School. It's not 100%.
It's like 70-something
Yeah.
percent, I think. 77%. Yes?
And this might have been answered before, but I just never knew. So teachers have to in third grade, like in Google Classroom, and then go in Power School?
Yes.
Okay.
It's their favorite.
Yeah, because I'm constantly like, it says missing here, but I can see it here. Like, it's there, it's not missing. And I know it's got to do with like how many days and whatnot for Power School, and then it's like comes in missing. So I don't know if they like enter assignments, and then it's not grade A, it's missing. It's probably like a teacher.
It would be, but we are working on creating some consistency there. I know one thing that teachers, especially in middle grades, because we have a late work policy in middle grades, is that, students might not turn the assignment in Google Classroom and it'll show missing there, but when a teacher, generally before they even grade anything, in order to better communicate with your families that, hey, your child didn't do this, they might not grade everything, but they'll go into Power School and just put that missing there so and that way, that kind of starts that process for the late work policy. So we've talked about kind of that process and how to get that very consistent on our team.
I'm like always like, it goes in late and then missing, and he's like, Mom, I turned it to the late file, like, I swear.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? Like if there is a due date in Google Classroom and your child turns something in, or it fails to turn something in, which happens, and then they resubmit something, the teacher might not immediately go back to grade that resubmitted assignment.
But I didn't know if there was some kind of upload or.
We wish that would be
Yeah.
ideal.
I didn't realize that until you guys questioned. Sorry.
No, it's a great question.
Trying to save yourself from argument, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is Power School used across the board for all the grade levels? Because like that first grader, I haven't ever looked on Power School. Like each resident? Okay.
It is. Yes.
Stop by with your driver's license to
Yeah.
Jennifer on your way out, and she'll get you set up on that.
Yeah. Newsletters, we send those out electronically, usually on Mondays. If it's a board meeting week, it's Tuesdays. Sometimes we get a little bit behind, but generally speaking, we try to get that. There's a lot of information in the newsletters. I know there's a lot of information in the newsletters because people said we want more information. No problem.
I think it's great.
Somebody resend it.
It's one stop.
But then I get people that are like, there's too much information. Well, I don't know what to do. So, yes, there's a lot of information. Here's what we are trying to do.
I think make it bigger if it's really important.
Right.
You're hoping that that one might be.
More fun. What we are going to try to do is move to kind of dumping things. So people say, well, you have repetitive information on there. Well, yeah, because we're repeating ourselves. That's how that works, right? Because the event hasn't happened yet, right? But what we'll do is we'll start moving and shifting those things down, and then basically like emptying the trash when the event happens or whatever. We'll just kind of, so that we'll have more up or more, the things that may be a little farther out, we'll put at the top, and we'll still keep trying to get the information out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is over. Great. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I need a handbook, I just go and find the latest newsletter. It's always like I love that it's a place to go every time. I mean, I think it's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah.
And then Facebook. We have an official Facebook page. It is not the most visited, I guess, Facebook page for TIMA. I think there's a parent page, but we don't recognize the parent page. So I think that when people get some information or they try to act on things and they go to the parent page, I just want to make sure everybody understands, there's no school administrator that monitors that page. Believe me, people send me screenshots, but we don't monitor that, and I look for official communication. So we have an official Facebook page, and I'm very happy that when something happens on the parent page, someone says, have you reached out to the school, maybe email Mr. Ulrich. Also, if you could put my actual email address on there, that'd be great, because that really helps people not get frustrated, and they haven't heard from me for a few days, and no one actually emailed me. I don't know who got it, but someone got an email that was, I'm sure, pretty inflammatory, and they didn't know what to do with it. So, email the school. Please, we're happy to respond. That doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but we'll certainly engage in whatever we need to try to support our families. We believe in you guys and your kids, and we think communication is important. So, any other questions about that? Yes.
Can a grandparent be put on the newsletter notification?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
For sure. You just sign up to get the newsletter.
Okay, we're going.
Once again, unfortunately, Jennifer Fleming, who just everybody, I'm saying this publicly, we call her job security. If anything were to happen to job security, we don't know what would happen to this place. But Ms. Fleming is the perfect person to go and find basically anything.
She's great.
She's great. Or is there anything else? Yeah, okay, so open floor. Anything, doesn't have to be about technology. Anybody have any questions?
Something bad. What I'm wondering about is is there a requirement for how much iPad stuff is done in the classroom? So reading, for example, is there a requirement for how much actual book open reading is done, especially in the lower grades?
Good question.
Because I hear about other schools, they're watching people read to them on their iPad.
No.
Yeah, there's.
We don't. I mean, no. There is no number that we look at. I think that goes back to kind of what I was talking about with just the idea of screen time. What does that actually mean? And I could see that, if you see that your child's on their device for 3 hours, because you can, screen time shows you how long you're on there, and we all get those shaming reports every week. But this and just looking, that's one thing. But if you're maybe reading an actual paper book and you have your device open next to it, working on a project where you're showing some of your understanding of that book through technology, that's still considered screen time, but you have a paper book open. So I just think we have to be really discerning before we say we're going to cut off screen time at this amount, and just be discerning about the types of things students are doing with technology.
And also, our early literacy program is not iPad based
No, it's not.
at all. So,
Our phonics, Wilson Foundations is not, or for phonics is not.
there is like Epic Books, that does read to students and stuff,
Yeah,
but we don't.
I've said this before. I mean, I'm going to keep saying it. I trust teachers, and I try to give them an environment where they can do what they know is best for kids. And nobody, I'm saying this as a dad, nobody has as much contact with my child as their teacher does. So I have to lean into this professional who knows their craft to make decisions about what my child needs to be successful. If I see that they're not getting what they need, then I think for sure that's a conference, that's a whatever it takes, right? I mean, that's what we're supposed to do, whatever it takes. give us your kids. So there's not a requirement, but there's definitely some mindfulness with how kids are engaging in learning.
I want to add to that, there's intentionality there too. When we developed our early childhood literacy plan for K2, one of the things that as a team we talked about was even evaluating our classroom libraries, paper libraries. Were they where they needed to be? Because everybody knows that in order for students to love reading, they have to have access to paper books, to actual physical books. We all believe that. And so one of the things that we did was use some money from like the Scholastic Book Fair and from other places. We bulked up including bulking up our Wilson Foundation's kits, but we also bulked up our classroom libraries to make sure students had access to a variety of books that they could choose from, and we could teach children how to browse books. In addition to that, we have a great partnership with the library. In November, we shifted to a new program with them where all of our students can check out books without a library card. It just uses their student ID number and name. So there's no late fees associated with those accounts either. So, students are going to lose books. Before we had teachers checking out books in their name for students. So that's a new program we're really happy to have. And I know I've seen an increase in teachers taking their students to the library more regularly as well. So that's one thing.
This might be a teacher-specific question. Can we get to a place where we can trust that if we bring them home, we'll bring them back? Because they get the book, but then we don't get to interact with them and they can't read yet.
I think that was due to the fact that, and we can talk and figure out what class you're talking about after this, but that was due to the fact that teachers were checking them out under their name, which I completely understand. I wouldn't want to send home folks with an entire class under their name. With this new account, which is new, so I know not everyone has transitioned to using those. Yeah, absolutely, because then
Be able to read it at night with them, and they're excited about it, but then, yeah.
that's great feedback. We'll definitely, but I want to know kind of specifically what class you're talking about. So.
I think Alan and I said two completely different things, but did we answer what you were curious
Yeah,
about?
I especially the phonics program, that's helpful.
Oh,
The book libraries is refreshing everything. That's
I totally understand and respect iPads not coming home for the younger grades. My one was in third grade, is third now, he was second last year, so we had the iPad come home, which I really liked because I could felt like I knew what he was doing, and I was involved, and I could see what he was learning, and we could talk about it and this and that. My other one's in first grade, and I think he's loving it. He's wonderful, but besides just Seesaw, I think I speak for a couple of first grade. We're all we just feel real disconnected, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I get papers home periodically, but I don't have, if I don't look at Seesaw, then I don't really, have any clue, like, what are they reading books, like, what are they working on? I mean, I get the newsletter, from our teacher, which is, informational, but it's, I don't know, I just feel, I don't know, is there a way that, like, obviously can't change the whole policy. Yeah, but like, is there a way that, like, the iPad could come home, like, on Friday, and be given to, like, the parents have to sign and check it out, and then we can see what they've done throughout that week, and it's, the parents' responsibility to turn it in, so we just feel a little more
We can see
connected.
the blocks that they tried to read and then, we're not
use a lot of
understanding.
paper.
Let's talk about how you count
Don't they use a lot of paper?
There's no, like,
And I know we can look
Not a
at
lot,
ours,
actually.
but it's-
Armstrong does a lot, doesn't he?
I don't even know what I'm asking is even making
No,
sense.
it-
I just, I
it
feel
might be
we're
teacher
feeling
specific, it might be, but it's hard to figure out what we're gonna ask them without saying that we're not calling them a profession. They are, and to your point, we want them to have the freedom.
I'm gonna ask maybe an even harder question. How long have you felt like this? I mean, it's February.
I don't really know if I'm the right person to answer that. I think we
Now it's
I think what it is because I have one that brings an iPad home, and I'm all in, and then I have one that I'm like, so what do you in school day?
I can
don't
answer
know.
and this is like me too.
Yeah.
And it is our responsibility to bring this up sooner rather than later, but as a first grade parent, sometimes you think, maybe this is how it's supposed to be. Maybe they're supposed to have this autonomy. I'm new to being a mom of a kid in a real school in a sense. Like, you've only done kindergarten is one thing, and the first grade kind of feels like have more responsibility. And then it gets to about Christmas, and you're like, no, I'm gonna raise my hand. This is, you know, I kind of, and then we've had a little bit of discussion, and then as you're right, as it gets to February, you're like, all right, I just want to make sure we're not getting left behind and everything.
Sure.
So if that's the succession.
Yeah,
So maybe
yeah, I would
somebody-
say we're on the same page.
Yeah, we talked obviously and talked to the teacher.
Yeah.
Well, then, first of all, let me say I'm sorry that you felt like this for any amount of time. And second, thank you for trusting us enough to hang in there. We can certainly, like, if you guys don't mind hanging out just a little bit after, let's talk specifically about first grade and some things that maybe we can do to kind of help the communication piece and make you feel like you're aware of sort of where your child is. What's
And
going
please
on.
know we realize this is recorded and we're not trying to throw anybody.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I want to talk every week.
Well, and
This isn't a throwing anybody under the bus.
I don't consider it.
Yeah.
I wonder if the solution too could be maybe more support and training with the parent-facing side of Seesaw, so you could see that on your own app.
And maybe I missed it, but like a one-sheeter.
I'll put this on to show you one of my performance concerns,
Okay.
the parent access part of it.
And then the other piece that I would consider is what information is going home in the newsletters, and if there's something different that you'd like to see or more information in a certain area, that's something that we could easily say, hey, can we start adding this?
And it sounds like you two also just specifically want to see your child's work.
I just would like to see more of what he's doing, like some of the paperwork. I mean,
Sure.
In the beginning of the year, I got a full one, I mean, it was stacked full of stuff that I haven't gotten much sense. And it was doing stuff, you know, but I would just like to be able to put my hands on it.
So I just want to add to that too. So I have two children here. I have a 7th grader and a 4th grader, and I felt and we've been here since the beginning, so we've seen the evolution of all these things. And it was a struggle for me too. Like I would counter some of the very similar issues, and I eventually went to the teacher, and then those problems were answered with me. I felt a lot better. And now that I've kind of seen it through, I feel like it's served them very well. Like I feel very confident in what the teachers are doing. I just can't thank you guys enough. I think the direction is great, but I think it's very important to I made a mistake, I'm gonna admit this, on camera too, that I went to the parent-teacher page, and it was like during COVID, and I was trying to get questions answered, and I was in the wrong place.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you that I was in the wrong place, and I should have went directly to the teacher. And it eventually got back to the teacher. It was a mess, and I felt terrible about it. But going to the teacher, expressing your concerns will serve you well, and then knowing like what they're doing there, I think you'll feel better about it.
Right, because I don't want to be a helicopter mom. Like, so what point is it helicopter versus, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I mean, February is pretty safe. Like, nobody's going to be thinking helicopter parent at this point.
it's hard to break it down. Do you know
Yeah,
what I'm
but
saying?
and I really do want to validate. I mean, it sounds like there's some genuine concerns that we can address. We'll meet after this. And we'll definitely think about it and take care of it. But thanks for letting me know, for sure.
I have two other questions.
Yeah.
So one, does the being an Apple school, does that grant us any funding, or do we get into potential like, hey, you're opened up for grant money here, or what does that get us?
Not from Apple. We get a really cool banner. You can see it hanging in the hallway.
Sure, yeah.
There's like
Professional
black
learning.
sauce
Yeah.
hanging by the front door. From Apple, no. There's not even a discount.
Okay.
Which
That's not surprising. That's
we're
not
out there like
They're
pushing
using you
your
for free advertising.
Right. No, yeah, but that's not the way Apple works. But I will say that when, like for example, we're looking at the growth strategy, they're very interested in replicating a school that knows how to be innovative with technology across the state of Georgia. So and we have a $50,000 grant, do I think that's a direct correlate? Not necessarily, but do I think that's part of the information they use to make a decision? Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. The second question was AI systems. Like, is there any talk of that in the school system, of like combating AI issues or like integrating that into the tech?
That makes me a little nervous.
We did this presentation on ChatGPT.
Yeah, with ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT is although, let me say, like, the queue, like the line to get in to use chat is so long. I mean, it's crazy. we have a mindfulness of a lot of different things that we haven't talked about here. I mean, we don't do anything with AR, VR. We need to. We don't do a lot of things with our kids talking about AI, except we have a mindfulness of the impact that that could have on student creation of written content, right? You guys are probably consuming AI content if you read the newspaper and you didn't know it. It's been going on for about 5 years now, probably a little bit longer. And then there's quantum computing, there's all of these things that we have a mindfulness of, and we know that we need to provide some opportunity for kids who also have a mindfulness of those things, but not necessarily utilize. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's on your guys' mind and there's other
Absolutely.
conversations that are happening,
Yeah.
I think that's the beginning.
I read an article this morning about exactly that, AI and what that's doing to writing classrooms and how we can still build student writing skills in the upper grades with the fact that they really could have someone write, something
Oh yeah,
for them.
I mean, I'm currently using those programs to benefit, our family. So, I see there's potential and I see there's the, cons. So.
Right. For sure.
Absolutely.
With every new creation, there's the opportunity for someone to pervert that and use it for ill gains, right, or inappropriate means. We just try to make sure that, and going way back to the first slide that Ali spoke from, I mean, we try to keep our kids very, very in tune with the appropriate use of technology, no matter what that is, and that we do that being mindful of what the adults in their life have to help put up guardrails for. The use, the consumption, the implementation. I mean, we all want to have creative kids, and we do, but then when you create something, like, what do you do with that? And that could be something written, it could be some movie, it could be the way they annotate a photograph, and any of those things. So we're mindful of those things and talk about those things and what their potential impact to our school programming could be. We don't do computer science to the depth or the degree that I think we should. Part of that is scheduling, part of that is time,
Money.
part of that is the right person. But there's definitely ways that we can continue to progress kids into experiences while still keeping them safe. And technology is actually just as concerning for us as content sometimes, as far as the things that the ideas that we introduce and how we can always refer back to the values of our families and our community, right? Like, technology is the same way. We are mindful of those things. If that's not something we overtly talk about, I hope this is evidence that it is something that we're engaged in as the adults that are in the lives of your children and your family. Good questions. Any other questions? Obviously, that was still technology. It doesn't have to be. Yours wasn't, but that's good.
Kind of to piggyback off that a little bit, my only request would be as we move forward, I know how important technology is here, and that was kind of an adjustment for us as well as a family, just because we have one iPad for the family kind of thing. I mean, we're pretty strict on just their usage, and so it was an adjustment for me, for sure, with my kids. Even now, it's a lot of conversations, videos and all that kind of stuff. But my only request would be, as we move forward, when these opportunities to kind of bring in more technology, if we can continue to have these type of discussions, these things like whether they're monthly, quarterly, or whatever, just to kind of give the parents a heads up, like, hey, we're going to bring this on board. This is why we think it's fantastic. Because again, a lot of us if we're not using it, you're not very aware of it. Then if you're not aware of it, you're not comfortable with it. And so I just think it would, just be better for everyone. So I appreciate this. This is great.
Yeah, and I'll say, to have a second grader run through the intersection in the morning because they're trying to get to Mr. Lopalo's class to 3D print the thing they created in Tinkercad, I'm like, okay, wow.
That was my kids this morning.
It's great. Yeah. I'm also like, whoa, that's amazing. But also probably not something that second grader's parents were thinking he was going to have access to when they started school year, right? So yes, we will definitely continue to have our parents be mindful of and include them, and but certainly when we're talking about our LMS, if we ever get this great umbrella that we get to pull everything in, parent feedback is going to be really important because we want you to have maybe a beta version of that to see how it all works together, so you can tell us, like, I still don't know what you're doing in first grade, right, or whatever. We need that kind of feedback for sure. So we'll definitely continue to involve our parents with that. I think that part of this social contract is that you trust us to make good decisions based on research and based on what we know kids need, but we should not be doing that in a vacuum, and we're really trying not to. Anything else? So, governing board meeting at 6:30 on February 27th. If you guys did not know, we live stream those. There's no commentary that you can do, and if you want to publicly speak, you have to come to the board meeting. But if you just want to see what's happening and see the discussion, and there's a lot of information at those meetings, February 27th, 6:30 p.m. And she's got, okay. Oh, I thought you would have like something for the board meeting. All right, hold on.
No, this is a way to plug in.
All right, and another way to plug in before February 27.
We got our ticket. We got our
Oh, okay.
This is Front Porch Improv. If you have the tickets, I'm not going to but you guys haven't seen this, so it's just we talk about like social events for our families, and Front Porch Improv is a group that comes in to, you guys want one? They come in and they work with students on brainstorming, acting out the things that they learn, something that maybe a lot, especially if you don't have older kids, they go into our middle grades classrooms and they teach them how to deal with their feelings and how you can express feelings appropriately, which is a really amazing skill for middle grade kids to have, and they can do that through improv. That's part of a grant that they have that they get to work with us. It's called Trauma Drama, but it's really just more about having kids process the way they feel about things and then act that out. So Front Porch has been a really great partner for us, and they are, they're all in with our school. So all the ticket sales, 100% come back to us. It's not even, like they're just giving the venue and the cast. I think they will have food and drinks available, but as far as the ticket sales, it all comes back to us, and I think that's this Saturday.
Guest appearances by TIMA teachers and admin. Yeah, we'll be there.
She's pointing at herself.
I know.
Amazing when she did that.
There's-
I guess you're pointing at you and Laura.
I will be in the audience. There's one more thing that's not on here. Cassie has done a fantastic job of reaching out to local businesses to host nights that give us money in fundraising. We had one at Papa Murphy's Pizza that was successful. We got $300. And then February 7th, it's at Chipotle. And that's in the newsletter. But, you know, if you order online, there's a code you can use, and TIMA will get the proceeds from that.
You go first, you have to have the flyer. So that's in the newsletter as well. You have to have the flyer.
So I just wanted to highlight that as well.
And then when you guys come back for the next parent plug-in, it's happening on March 2nd. We're going to talk all about our curriculum and how all of that works, which people usually have a lot of questions about. But it's a pretty amazing model that gets the kids collaborating and creating specifically about how they learn the state standards, which is not like anywhere else. So please come back to that.
Do we have a time for that?
Probably 8:30,
Yeah.
8:45 again.
It's 8:30.
That means that we ask about foreign language. Is there a foreign language taught in the lower grades? Was there once?
There was one. So what we did for 1 year, kick myself forever for this, is that we were going to attempt to do immersion with a grade level and carry it all the way through. There were a lot of reasons why that was not going to work. Because when you do that, you have to kind of dedicate that for that grade level, and it has to carry them all the way through. But then you're not serving anybody else, you're just serving those kids, which is great, but it's problematic when you have a part-time teacher. So, and Hanban and the Confucius Institute closed. So we were able to maintain our partnership with Wesleyan University to pay for a grant, to award us a grant to help pay for our Mandarin instructor, but again, it's still part-time money, right? So the decision was made, I did, where we wanted to offer a foreign language for high school credit, because that really helps our kids as they progress into the local high schools. So we made the decision, again, that was me, to offer Mandarin for 7th grade, 8th grade, and then just sort of looking at that. However, I will say, in all of the things that we've done with strategic planning in the last year, looking at what our 5-year plan is, we have had a lot of really positive feedback about what a world language program could look like in elementary school. So we had a meeting with the director of world languages for Savannah Chatham. It's this weird space where we're a charter school, but we're still supported by them. So we had a really great meeting with him last week, and we are moving forward with trying to implement some plans for a lower school model and what that could look like, and for still maintaining high school credit for our upper school students. So it is something that we plan to put into our strategic plan for the next 5 years. I'm certainly have to go to our board and talk about that. It's going to cost money, right? But there's also grants available. Ms. Beck was filling out a grant yesterday. No, day before yesterday was the deadline. Because we found out about it that day.
Friday.
So we are, well, he emailed us though, it was really great. But we are working on that. So world languages have such a tremendous value, right? So we absolutely want to continue to work on that. He gave us really great feedback though. I mean, he absolutely feels like we're in the right place with Mandarin as a world language, because he said no one else is doing that, and like you would think, well, then is that really a good choice? But he said it absolutely is the right choice. He said it's a complicated language, but the exposure that kids get to the culture and what they can do with that, even if they don't become fluent speakers, just that opportunity to engage in that way, he was really excited about. So he speaks 9 languages, so I'm going to take his feedback. Pretty good. Is that it?
The newsletter, you can, if you want to just you could forward it to aunts, grandparents, and when you click on it, there's a place where you can subscribe.
Anything else? All right, folks, thank you for your time. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I love the calendar. I'm really excited about it. I want it all the time off. I love it. Is it going to stay like the new, or is it going to change to where it looks more like a year-round schedule?
A more balanced calendar is what we talked about.
Okay, yeah.
Because you say year
I'm
round,
fine with
and
whatever.
people
I
think
love
you go to
it,
school in the
but-
summer. We're continuing to get feedback, and we're continuing to look at data on what this is doing for us. Remember, this is our first year.
Sure.
Right? So next year, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to gather feedback, gather data. One of the things, and I always want to know, like, what's the correlate? And I don't know what it is, but I can tell you that, and I just presented on this at the board meeting last week, our truancy rate is 0.2%. It's amazing. So I don't know if that's because we offer some flexibility in the calendar, but I do know that there's been a lot of appreciation from families that, especially after the fall break, they were like, I didn't know how much my kid needed a break, but they did. And I will tell the KM1 folks that I ran to those teachers on that Monday that we came back, and I'm like, how are the kids? Like, were they able to be off a week and come back? Like, what was that like? And they were like, it was great, because, and just anecdotal feedback, that they said around that 9-week mark, they're starting to not like their table mates as much. And they were able to, I'm just being honest, they're like, but they came back and they're like, oh, I still like you, right? Like that was, that seemed to be a good time. And remember, we were trying to be very intentional, 9 weeks in a break, 9 weeks in a break, because that's also the way that we gather grades, it's the way that we engage in projects. Future Cities is even something that we've gone back and said that hung over into January, we'd want to move everything back so that we're done by the holidays. Because some of the kids were still stressing out about their cities and all of that. They can still compete in the spring. They don't have to be engaged in it at that time. So we're still making adjustments.
I love
but
our kids that we can continue to. I
That's the
still
goal.
keep working with it.
And-
It was beneficial for my children too. They were, and you did it right.
Right.
Seeing them down was not.
I will add too, I mean, we have the 2 weeks at the winter holiday, and then we already have this year 2 weeks built into the spring. Really a balanced calendar would just consolidate those and add one more week in the fall. It's not,
Right.
we're not talking about, in the event that happened, that it would add,
Right, and
anything more than just really 1 week. If it's 2 week intercessions,
well, but
And make it so all wrap. I don't care.
here's the thing about calendar, and you'll hear some of our board members, and we have members that have served on the Spanish Chat board too for like 12 years. That there is no 100% satisfaction with the calendar. There's just not. And I don't know if you know this. Parents are going to do what parents are going to do. Okay, we're just trying to operate school. I'm trying to do it in a way that's really good for everybody. The thing about looking at any other adjustments, we still end up with, even if we added that extra week, you still end up with about 6 weeks in the summer. Like, that's the thing I don't understand. People are like, your summer's gone. It's not. I mean, you still end right after Memorial Day, and you still come back really in man, I tell you what, those 3 days of July is what set everybody off.
Oh, really?
I was like, you started school in July. I'm like, that's okay, yeah. My bad, for sure. For sure. Also, why did we start on a Wednesday? Guess who gave us feedback about that?
Yeah.
You guys did, because you were like, man, starting on Monday for my baby was, and it was really K1 and 2, because you're like, they're exhausted. So, and so, anyway.
You're preparing for school to start August, the beginning of August, on July 26th anyways. Like you're like already give your kid like, so what's different? What's there? I know.
So, but,
You're not gonna satisfy.
Yeah.
and
You're saying the thought would be we might extend, it might be one more week in January or July that you would start to add that extra week, or would you in school? How would it shift if we got an extra week of intercession?
we haven't looked at that yet. One of the things that we took feedback from our colleagues and parents about was the introduction of these conference days, which we haven't done. That's actually why we ended up with 3 extra days. We introduced these conference days. Laura, you're not saying anything, but you did this.
they're actually half days, so they don't, yeah.
Also, we got to talk about the value of a half day, but whatever. We wanted to make sure that we had opportunities for conferencing, so that maybe we're not in February when someone's like, I don't know what's going to make a conference. But we get feedback from families, and our colleagues are also like, I would love to have time during the week where I can just get with families and they can come in and we can go over this stuff, right? So, but those were additional days in the calendar that we needed to try to work on, and I don't know how successful they're going to be, right? Or if there's going to be a way that we can still convey the same information and have productive things without necessarily costing those days, right? So then how big of an adjustment would it be? I promise you, we had an executive team meeting on Monday, and Laura will tell you what was on the agenda. The 24-25 calendar is already something that we're mindful of. And I would also love to present to the board a calendar that can, we can put it in place for a couple of years, so that people can really start planning. But we're still gathering feedback, we're gathering data on the success of what we're doing, and then we're going to share all of that and make the choices that we can make. Laura will still, I'm sure, implement a opportunity for families to come in and give feedback. We really do value that. And then we're still going to make the best choice that we think we need to make.
Do the teachers like the calendar?
They love it.
I'm assuming they would, but
They do. And I will tell you, when we have teachers from other schools that come and get training from us on how we do what we do, the calendar is like, what? The fact that they have common planning every day for 2 hours, and that they have the calendar looks like, they're like, wow. But remember, this is supposed to be a teacher's dream job, because I think if you take care of teachers, they take care of your kids. Logic is pretty simple. Go ahead.
As my wife teaches here, and we have twins in kindergarten, and from both the student perspective, the family, and the teacher, we love the calendar. I used to teach in North Carolina, and we used the traditional year-round 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off for intercession, and that was too long of a break. So these 1 week breaks in the middle, from a teacher perspective, former teacher perspective, and then the kids, what we're doing now, we really love.
Thank you. Yeah, 9 and 3 is the traditional year-round calendar. And we've talked too, like 3 weeks just seems like a really long time to be away from your children. Because then we start worrying about learning loss, we start worrying about, you know, those relationships that they've built. But the nice thing that we're experimenting with this year and with next year's calendar is this springtime where we actually have those 2 weeks. And this 1 week, the other thing I didn't say about the spring intercession is Savannah Chatham is still attending school, which means we still have breakfast, we still have lunch, we still have and we're able to run one bus, which we're paying for, but I mean, you know, it's nice that we can do that. So with the 2 week intercession, that gives all the colleagues that need the break the chance to have it off. And then they also can work an extra week to help kids. So I promise we what we're doing here.
Yeah.
We're trying, but we're also trying to figure it out in the way that serves our families. So, but thank you for that feedback. That's great. Where did Allie go? She was supposed to meet.
She had a conference.
All right. Well, then you ladies can come to my office. Thanks so much, everybody.